vote in response to that. Hold on. That's not, just a public disclosure.
Hello, everybody.
2004.
It's just beyond the hour of 1 o'clock, so I'd like to call the meeting to order. And Jody, a record of attendance, please. She says yes. Any declarations of conflicts of interest? Hearing none, we'll move on. Number 4 is the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions? Ken.
Two very quick items, the Yarmouth Natal Day quiz, and I have a question on signage. Could I bring that up under the planner's report, or? Okay, so
Sure.
it'll just be that one item, Jim. Just a Natal Day quiz.
Hearing none, I call, I'm sorry, Jeff.
Thank you. We have a presentation, I believe, from the RCMP today, and if we could maybe do that at the top of staff reports, so right after we approve the agenda. I think in the interest of hearing these gentlemen and having them free to carry on their day. And as well, I've got some correspondence that's been circulated on your desk. Let's see what we have. There was the item from Councillor Mooney. Now, I'm not sure if that made it on the agenda about the planting in the medians. You've got that there? Okay. Yeah. We have correspondence from the Agricultural Society, which I circulated by email. So if we could add that as an item under business. And then we had a response to our letter to the Minister concerning Kalydeco. And Kalydeco, it's a drug that isn't covered under the MSI program. And then we had we have a letter of request from the Heart and Stroke Foundation. So maybe we could add that under business as well if we have time today.
All right, the agenda's been moved to acceptance by Councillor Madeline, seconder. By Councillor Langell. Question, all those in favor please signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Jeff, you're on first.
Staff Sergeant.
Oh, sorry about that. Staff Sergeant Kevin Surratt.
I do have a PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, you do?
So I don't know if
2 seconds.
audio visual aids, right? It's all about audio visual aids.
Nothing compared to 250. No. Life's a party. Life is a party.
Oh, I forgot, thanks.
Good answer.
I got a pen I left. No, I don't want, I gotta keep a pen.
You gotta
Yeah. Okay, you know what, oh,
check in here. She probably has some in her. I got one for me. Greg, would you have sit? It's nice you should associate me with dogs.
go ahead. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us, everybody. I just want to take a moment to, I know what most of you know who I am, Kevin Spread. I've been transferred and moving on, so part of the reason for coming here is, today is not only for the report, but also to introduce my replacement. So Sergeant Jeff Holmes, beside me, will be taking over the, command responsibilities of Yarmouth Town on an interim basis. And he'll be your point of contact now as I move on to, the advisory and CO role, also stationed here in Yarmouth. So I'm not really going very far, and I'll still be around and I'll still be watching the ferry coming and going. So that's always a good thing. So Jeff will be taking over. Actually, we actually changed over on April 1st of this year. So I assume new duties as Jeff. So certainly I'll leave you, I think, in really good hands. And if you need anything from Jeff, will be just as attentive as I've been over the years. So in relation to the Yarmouth Town Detachment Annual Report, I just adopted a slightly different format this year and created this quick little PowerPoint. Certainly if you have any questions or concerns along the way, feel free. Otherwise, I'm just going to go through it. It's only 12 slides or so. So as you know, the establishment in town here is for 1 staff sergeant, 2 corporals, and 12 general duty constables, 2 GIS investigators, community policing, and our 3 detachment assistants who are all municipal employees. Just want to touch on 24-hour policing. With a total of 18 members, 24-hour policing sometimes is a bit of a challenge. I'm certainly not advocating getting rid of that, because I think that's paramount to our service delivery here in the town, is to have 24-hour policing. But it does create some issues with staffing levels and all that kind of thing. You don't have to be down too many people before you start having to stretch it. As a result, we normally work on a shift schedule, a 12-hour shift schedule, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And we normally have, when everybody's around, we have 3 constables on at any given time. We do go down to 2 on occasion. As you all know as well, we do have additional services here locally. We partner very closely with the Yarmouth Rural Detachment. Traffic services for this area, for the Tri-Counties, is in and out of our town very frequently. FIS is our IDENT section. They're housed in Yarmouth as well. Dog section, PDS, Federal Enforcement Unit, and our Street Crime Enforcement Unit are all based here in Yarmouth as well for the region. So they don't just do the Yarmouth area, but they are based here. So we end up getting a lot of the benefits of having them here locally. We also have a crime analyst. Those on the Police Advisory Board are aware. I had him in for a discussion with the Police Advisory Board here recently. He's also available to speak to council if ever the council would like that. But he basically drives our crime reduction initiatives by the analysis of not only the crime stats, but the trends that are ongoing in the area. As a matter of fact, he helped me with this report as well as far as the statistics go. As you know, we come up with priorities every year, annual performance plan priorities. Last year, domestic violence was on there. We were required to have everybody trained in the ODERA system for domestic violence. We did a total of 4 educational presentations to the community. We partnered with mental health and are currently going through some talks with mental health right now in relation to getting people the assistance that they require, which are not generally police assistance, but we end up getting called because there's just nobody else. Warrant reduction was big for the province this past year. We executed 60 warrants over the past year, and we traveled to Alberta and Ontario to retrieve some of our clientele. Yes.
Why would you, the crime was that severe that you went to Alberta to get something like that, two incidents?
Quite often what happens is somebody is arrested in another jurisdiction. They then check with the jurisdiction which holds the warrant. In this case, it was us. And we make a determination at that point if we're going to go get them or not. And it's usually based on the severity of the crime and sometimes the number of crimes that are outstanding.
Now,
Or alleged crimes.
Who would front the cost?
It's the detachment has a budget above and beyond whatever the town pays, but when I get my budget downtown, and that cost comes out of my budget. So I have to be able to manage that as well. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, crime reduction. I'll talk more about that in the coming slides, so I'm just going to gloss over that one for a second. Road safety is another one that's big for the division. So here this past year, we were able to apprehend 19 impaired drivers. We laid 229 Motor Vehicle Act charges and 60 charges on handheld devices, which are also huge with the province right now. Police visibility, as you know, is one of the things that we try to do here in the town. I know it's important to the council and to the citizens. We conducted 167 foot patrols this past year and attended 42 public appearances. And by public appearances, I mean generally where members go in Red Surge or have to attend to deliver talks or presentations of some sort. It could be high school graduations, for example, that sort of thing. Now this slide is very busy, and I apologize, but a lot of the statistics on this slide are
Kevin, just a second. Madeline?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one question, and it has to do with the previous slide. Under impaired, you have impaired drivers there. You have, in brackets, alcohol. Are there any numbers that come under the under drugs?
Yes.
It does.
Yeah, we have.
Are they included in the 19?
No, those were 19 charges for impaired driving by alcohol. Mm-hmm. There's a new priority coming up this year, and perhaps Sergeant Holmes can speak to that, but there is an initiative to have more members trained in determining the level of impairment by drug. So as you know, the old breathalyzer or data master or intoximeter all measure alcohol, and there's a number value assigned if you're over 0.08, for example. The problem has been if you stop a vehicle, somebody's impaired to some extent, you're not sure how much by marijuana. If you don't have the proper driving evidence, it's going to be difficult to lay that charge. So what we've developed is drug recognition experts. The members are being trained. There'll be, throughout the course of the year, the idea is to get at least a couple of them trained per detachment. So those members can conduct a series of tests to determine A, what type of drug the person is impaired by, and B, to what level of impairment they find themselves, and if we can support a criminal charge or not.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I have another question, but I'm not going to help everyone out with it. I'll ask them.
Okay, so this slide again is very busy, and I do apologize, but the trend here, what I had our crime analyst do is I know the last few years the council has asked that I provide comparative numbers from previous years. So what this slide shows is basically everything from 2008, 2009 to present day on some of our major investigations and categories of crime. So you'll see across the top the dates, but you can really fast forward. You can have a look at the green ones first. Let me here. The green ones are this past fiscal year, 2013-14. So April 1st of last year to March 31st of this year. You can look at every year if you'd like. This is all, it's all in the report. Oh, by the way, I did email the report to Linda, but I didn't realize she wasn't in. So if you want, I can forward it to Jody as well and for dissemination. So you can have a good look at this. But if you follow right through to this column here where it says, it's basically, you can't see the very top there, but it's 2008-09 to 2012-13 average. So what our analyst has done is he's taken the previous 5 years and come up with an average, which gives us a very good picture, snapshot of how many calls or crimes that we've had in each category. You fast forward that to the average of 135, and you can look that in the last year we had 101. So assaults, for example, not including sexual assaults, we had 101 actual assaults, as opposed to reported that were unfounded. The 5-year average was 135 in the previous 5 years, so that's down 25%. Criminal harassment, uttering threats, 84 past year from 97, so down 13%. So that's how this table works. There's a lot of information on there, but I think you'll see the major trend with our crime reduction initiatives, which I've spoken of before and I will again, is that by targeting our prolific offenders, by keeping tabs on who's who in the zoo sort of thing, based on the numbers that our analysts can come up with, and who's committing a lot of these crimes, we've been able to reduce a lot of these crimes. Now, is that the only factor? I don't think so. Obviously, people leave, the population changing, the demographics of your given population all would play a role. But overall, crime rates are down within the town. So persons crimes, which are here, we've gone from 244 average over the past 5 years to 195. Total property crime, we've gone from 515 to 407. So that's down 21%. So you're seeing a 20 to 25% drop on average in a lot of our crime rate. What I'd like to point out here, of course, is that if you look at our self-generated, which means we go out looking for people who are on certain conditions, we've gone from 30 as a 5-year average to 39 this year. And drugs, we've gone from 12 to 15. Crime prevention files, we've gone from 42 to 50. So those are all up. So that would tend to show what we're doing in relation to crime prevention and how it's impacting the numbers of what we're seeing coming through the door. So I say that, I realize it's a double-edged sword. The crime rates are going down, but I think a lot of it has to do with not just the fact that things are changing, but that the police are out doing a lot of proactive things to try to lower those numbers, which is demonstrated by these numbers here. The overall numbers as well, as you can see, are down by about 10%. So I know, again, that's a very busy slide, and when you have time, certainly if you have questions at a later date that you want to post to either myself or Sergeant Holmes, he's fully aware of these things as well, so we can move forward from there. But I just wanted to give you that as a snapshot of how things are changing within the town.
Thank you.
Just in comparison, we looked at the criminal code case burden is one of the ways that we judge how busy we are when it comes to DOJ and that type of thing. So what these numbers mean is that each member in the detachment carries on average in 2010 88 criminal code investigations, in 2011 88.63, 2012, 88.56, 2013 down to 76.82. By comparison, Yarmouth Rural last year was at 64%. The divisional average in 2012 was 68. They didn't have the numbers yet when I prepared this report for 2013 for the entire division. But what you'll see here is that by and large, Yarmouth Town detachment tends to be slightly busier than the divisional average or the provincial average. The members are busy. The Crime Severity Index, I brought this forward last year as well. It showed it was of some concern to some. The Crime Severity Index is basically a tabulation of how serious the crime is. And so, for example, a property crime is not going to score as high on the Crime Severity Index as a person's crime. If they're looking at two persons crimes, an assault is not going to score as high as a sexual assault. Or an assault is not going to score as high as an assault with a weapon or causing bodily harm. So they rate these, and then they compare across borders to see where the most serious crime is. I don't want you to be alarmed at this slide. I know that our numbers in comparison to Yarmouth Rural, for example, are high. But I would ask you to look more at the provincial average, and we're not so much higher. But basically what it comes down to is Yarmouth town is the economic and social hub. So a lot of things that are happening in town are not necessarily perpetrated by the citizens of the town. You know, we have a lot of people coming through the town. We have thefts and assaults from hockey teams who are visiting. We have thefts and assaults from the ball teams that are visiting. We have all that type of thing. So it's not necessarily that we are a violent place. It's just that unfortunately, where the crime happens is that determines who has jurisdiction. So in our case here, where we try to attract a lot of people to come to the town, with that comes a higher crime rate. And you also have all the drinking establishments here. So I don't want to pick on them, but certainly we have a higher number of assaults and that type of thing at bar closing than you at the Red Knight than you would at the Legion in Wedgeport, for example, generally speaking, just off the top of my head. So that's why those numbers are higher. Any questions on that?
We're going to have the numbers for 2013?
No, the number for 2013 for the, no, they have to wait for this to go through. They have to go through the court process and all that kind of stuff. So there's always a lag before you get the numbers for the previous year. So hopefully they've continued to drop. There's a bit of a downward trend there. Well, not really. It's the last 2 years, but anyway, we'll see how it goes in the next year. These are just other statistics that I know that some of you have shown interest in over time. Criminal record checks. Our ladies at the front counter conducted 436 this past year, just slightly down. We lodged 228 people in cells. Those are overnight cells. They're not at the, we're not talking the correctional facility. We're talking our holding cells, which are for 24 hours or less. Abandoned 911 calls, I just put those because those are the 911 calls where there really is not an emergency. They're a huge time waster for us, but it's the necessary evil, I guess. But we're up to 140 of those. Mental health cases down from 131 to 88. These are not actual charges for illicit drugs. These are investigations that we've entered into, not necessarily charges, but from 54 to 48. Motor Vehicle Act charges. This number is slightly different than what I had on the APP version because this is calendar year as opposed to fiscal year, but it still shows an increase. And written warnings, 380, up from 327. So you'll see the roads, I'll attribute that to our road safety initiatives, getting more members out there, stopping more cars kind of thing, looking for your serious crime impaired driving, but as a result, you end up with more written warnings and more MVA charges as well. Just wanted to touch on some noteworthy investigations we did over the year, I should say. You probably all heard this one in the news, the human remains found in the residence on Grove Road, where the nephew of the deceased was charged with numerous offenses. Can't get into a lot of detail there, it's still going ahead, but we're not talking a murder or anything here, but we are talking failing to provide necessities to a person and what's the other wording for the human body? The disposal? Yeah, improperly disposal of human body. We also had some of these things, I just bring it to your attention so you're aware of some of the things that go on that we see frequently and a lot of people probably aren't aware of, but we arrested an adult male for writing threatening comments on the DFO building in his own blood. I guess he really wanted to make a point, but these are things that go on. Unfortunately, we had a missing persons investigation which turned into the recovery of human remains adjacent to a walking trail. I put that there only because we certainly didn't want anyone coming along the walking trail to see what we saw there. And it was late or middle of the night, early morning, and certainly investigationally we have lots of steps to follow, but we were able to get them all done and open the trail again so that nobody was inconvenienced there. We also sent members out to Yarmouth County community there, where there was an attempted murder, 2 attempted murders actually, where it was unknown where the suspect was at the time, so members from county and town went out. We went out to back them up and to assist. As it turned out, the suspect was located deceased as well. We've had several home invasions over the past year, and I'm happy to say that when these have happened in the past year, I'll give you an example. We had, or I should finish my sentence, I suppose. We've been able to find the guilty, or imagine that, we've been able to find the suspects relatively quickly, and certainly within 24 hours. That reminds me of a joke, by the way. A judge I once knew in Newfoundland said, well, let's bring the guilty people in and give them a fair trial. But he was kidding. That must have been what I was thinking of subconsciously. So we've been able to make those arrests relatively quickly, and as a matter of fact, in all cases, we've been able to track down the suspects relatively quickly. So that's a testament to the members' knowledge of who's who and what's going on. We also had an interesting case there where an adult male was charged with uttering threats against certain court officials. That led to the panic button being pressed by several agencies and facilitated our risk assessment of certain court officials' residence and everything. So it was in hindsight, it was an interesting file. The trial has been held, but no decision has been rendered yet, and the suspect was in custody. So we were able to deal with that. But it was a very interesting investigation, not one that we deal with. We see that type of thing on TV all the time, but we don't necessarily deal with it every day. Some of our community policing programs, I just want to throw those out there. Dana Patterson, or Constable Dana Patterson, is our community policing officer. She does DARE, and she's going to be introducing WITS in the schools. WITS is an anti-bullying program. Some of you are probably familiar, certainly on the Police Advisory Board, of our SAFE plans, which are the school action for emergencies. If ever there was a threat in a school, it's a coordinated effort between school officials and ourselves. She's conducted summer programs at Juniper House for some of the children and the youth that are involved there. Apologize. Community events, she's attended numerous vigils, and certainly the members have assisted. We've also enjoyed a close partnership with MAD, Crime Prevention Association. We have a really good, I'm sorry, I keep touching that. We have a really good relationship with the school board and the schools here locally, Tri-County Women's, YACRO, and as I say, we're working with mental health right now to try to mitigate the harm that we can do in responding to mental health cases. Because quite often people call the police because they're at their wit's end with a mental health issue, and the police really, not only is it not appropriate, don't have a lot of authority on what we can do there, but there's nowhere else to call sometimes. I'm just going to turn this one over to Sergeant Holmes as far as looking forward. I'll be, like I said, I've left and Jeff's taken over, so he can just maybe touch on what some of his plans are for the coming year.
I'll give you a little introduction of who I am as well. Some of you may know me or met me before. Some of you probably know my mother pretty well, and my mother and my father, who live here in Yarmouth and have been long-time residents. I grew up here in the Yarmouth area and graduated from high school, from Yarmouth Memorial High School, and certainly I see many of my classmates or people that I went to school with in positions around the district and the town, in the schools and in a variety of positions where it's nice to be able to see those people and be involved with them again. I was thrilled to have the opportunity to start here April 1st and be your interim commander here in Yarmouth Town. Having a chance to come home to an area and have an impact is a thrilling opportunity for anybody that's in the public service field. So I was real happy to be able to come home. I have 25 years of service completed. I'm in my 26th year. 20 years of it was out west in British Columbia and Regina, Saskatchewan. The last 5 years I've spent in Batagan as a detachment commander there. So the detachment command function there isn't substantially different than the detachment command function here in Yarmouth Town. Kevin and I and Michelle Lacroix travel together routinely, and in fact Kevin and I have been on courses together, management development program courses. So in the last 5 years I've enjoyed a great rapport with the commanders here in the area, so I feel confident with that, and Kevin will be over my shoulder watching how I'm doing here in Yarmouth Town. So just a little bit of a background for me. I spent 11 years in plain clothes out west, probably worked on over 100 murders, worked on some very serious crime out there, And I can tell you that coming to this area does not have the same level of violence in some of the areas that I've been in. You know, I feel confident in taking my father and going and playing pool in some of the local establishments. I don't feel uncomfortable with that at all, or taking my university-age children out to those same establishments. So while we do have some issues in, drugs and alcohol create a good percentage of our work, in our local establishments, I would not be uncomfortable taking my parents or my children and playing pool, or, as my dad still beats me, so he's 83 and he can still beat me in pool. So with that, again, coming to this area, as I said to the residents of Clare when I was there, and I will tell you, is that I feel confident that this is a safe community. But every community has its issues, and you have a police force to be able to deal with when things are going badly. And so I feel very confident that you are in a good community, and I appreciate the time Kevin spent with me here and a little bit of the change of command that we've done. And he's close by, so when I have a question, I certainly don't have to go very far to get in touch with him or ring up his BlackBerry and ask him some questions. We just had some people down from Halifax that were evaluating the morale in the detachment, and I can tell you that the morale here in Yarmouth Town, and a lot of it has to do with Kevin's command, is very high. And that also is reflective on the town. If people like where they are, they tend to enjoy the work that they're doing. And I can tell you that this is a nice community to live in. I wouldn't be back here if it wasn't the case. Thrilled to be back. And again, people asked, geez, you were in Kelowna for 10 years. That's so beautiful out there. Why didn't you stay? Well, I'll tell you, it's very nice to be back in Nova Scotia and be able to make an impact in the community that you grew up in. So a little bit on that side. Anybody, any questions? I'll stop there for a second. Any questions for me?
Welcome home.
Thank you very much.
Your father's retired member also?
No, he worked for he wasn't a member of the RCMP, he worked for the public service as a radio operator out at the airport. Yeah. Yes, with some of the local media personnel, he's close by. So, okay, I'll continue on with our annual performance plan priorities. And again, we have priorities that I'll tell you, they're common across the country. But then provincially, the Department of Justice gets together and and speaks with our senior management, and then it funnels on down as to some of those provincial priorities. And it's not a surprise to me that cybercrime is a priority this year. What we're looking to do there is, from an educational perspective, provide some of our senior leaders in the detachment and the supervisors with additional information and training specific to cybercrime. So that's something that's going to take place. I know that I'm confident that you're familiar with Corporal Paul Pittman, who works in our street crime enforcement unit, and also one of the initiatives there is to get our street crime unit up and running with maybe some increased investigational skills specific to cybercrime, and working with our partners in the city, because that's where we wind up dealing with the tech crime side of things, the people that actually do the reviewing of the computer data or cell phone data. That's who does that. So we're just going to maybe work a little closer with them, have some increased education for our members in Yarmouth. Road safety, again, as a provincial priority, these are things that probably aren't going to change for quite a long time, because road safety deals with crashes, and how do we prevent crashes so people aren't injured and killed. And in the communities, one of the things that's changed as we've grown up is the use of handheld devices, cell phones. That still will be a priority here, is making sure that we're on the lookout for people that are using those types of devices. But also, and it brings back to one of the councillor's points earlier, we're also going to have increased education and training related to drug recognition experts. We have one member that's currently trained that needs an upgrade, needs some retraining that can be done in the Halifax area, and that's going to happen this spring. He just needs to be recertified. This is a member that came from another division, was transferred to Yarmouth Town Detachment, and just needs a recert, and that's going to happen again here in the not too distant future. And one of the other members that has a good drug background, had worked for the federal unit before. We're sending him on training to Jacksonville, Florida. In fact, that's where there's a couple of different places in the United States that do this drug recognition expert training, and we're sending a member off. So by summertime, the expectation is that we'll have 2 fully trained drug recognition expert members here. And when we talk about impaired driving, there's straight impaired driving that deals with driving evidence, and then there's impaired driving that historically was over .08 when it came to the use of the variety of instruments, breathalyzers, and those types of things. Well, that's not a charge that would be laid in a drug case. So there's been more awareness and education for our members specific to that, and that'll be a priority this year under the road safety objective, is looking for people that are not just impaired by alcohol, but are impaired by drugs as well. And that can be prescription drugs. It's not just illicit drugs, because unfortunately you do have some people that abuse prescription drugs as well. Just flip over to, okay. While you've all probably been through checkpoints in the past, we're going to try to focus our checkpoints a little more in looking for impaired by drug. And we're fortunate here that one of the corporals in the unit, Andrew Clark, has a significant amount of experience in traffic safety and in the road safety initiative. And Andrew's very involved with our members in establishing checkpoints, and there'll be more focus this year specific to the drug impaired side of things. Roadside driving suspensions for people that are not over .08 from the breathalyzer side of things, but are people that are between, say, 50 and 80. There are roadside suspensions that can be issued to them. Their vehicles can be towed, and we're going to be tracking that more this year than we have in the past. And as I mentioned, the distracted driving charges that are taking place. From a crime reduction initiative, we're looking to reduce the amount of property crime and person crime. Our GIS member, Constable Dave Jeans, is in charge of that particular objective. And we have 3 initiatives that we're looking at this year. We're going to increase some of our visibility as well in our liquor establishments. I was speaking with the Provincial Liquor Board agency here. As I'm new to the area in the sense that I haven't policed here before, I'm going to spend some time getting to know some of our owners or the people that are running our liquor establishments and seeing how we can best work together to minimize some of the events that take place in and around their establishments. Again, I've had excellent success in the past with that because truly, from an owner's perspective too, is that they're looking for people to come to their establishments and be able to enjoy themselves in a safe environment and have a good time. The police, when it comes to special event policing, and I've spent a lot of time doing that when I was in Kelowna, which is a summer destination place, is that you're working with your local owners so that people can enjoy themselves but not get into a situation where that we're forced to intervene and unfortunately they're spending time in our accommodations as opposed to their hotels. So that's an initiative that we're going to be working on this year as well in dealing with that. From crime reduction as well and community involvement, looking at the foot patrols within the town of Yarmouth and appearance at public events. Already, I've spent a little bit of time when we've had some sunny days walking downtown and speaking to some of the merchants, people that don't recognize me maybe in uniform, and it's like, oh, it's you. And when I talk to them later on, some of these people that I've known from growing up here, I'll mention one specifically here, Bruce Johnson, who I've known for a long time and have played sports with and against, and so I stopped in and had a little chat with Bruce as I was walking down Main Street there last week. I expect to do that quite a bit, especially when the ferry starts to operate here. We're going to see increased traffic in the Yarmouth area once the ferry arrives in the morning. And that's going to be something that's a little new for the area. It's not used to that, but it's not that we haven't had ferries here before, but the 9 o'clock arrival will be different than when I worked on the Blue Nose. I worked on actually both Blue Noses previously, and we came in at 3. So those are some of the initiatives that we're looking to be involved with. Over the year, we can add initiatives. At any time when we wind up having a community that says, hey, this is a particular thing that we'd like you to look at, then we can add initiatives to go forward with that. When I was again in Clare over the 5 years of doing exactly the same thing, detachment planning, we would get a call from councillors who were saying, constituents in their area are saying this has become more of an issue for them. We add that to our plan. We look and see how we can best address that, and we go forward. So I certainly invite you to be in contact with me if you have some initiatives that you look to see that are important, because it's a dynamic document that goes forward. So it's some of what we got going on there. Any questions?
Nope, not yet.
Okay. Thank you again. Yes. Yeah. I would say that, and I still enjoy a number of different things. I still enjoy reading, and maybe it's because of my grade 10 history teacher.
Unlike the kids today, Jeff, you can read.
Okay. New building? Are we going to talk about that? I saw it on the list there. Okay. I can say that, I was speaking with Mr. Ernst yesterday. It was yesterday, I believe. Yes, and we're still working towards, did you get some information? There was supposed to be somebody in touch with you maybe today or tomorrow. No, haven't been yet, but I was speaking with our special projects group. They were meeting with our IT and security group related to 99% plans, and what I was told was somebody would be in touch with you this week to make those go forward. So we're following up, and I continue to follow up on that particular area, and certainly all the members look forward to the time when we'd be able to move into that into the new building. So.
Thanks again. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Jeff, our CAO report.
Thank you. I've circulated my report in hard copy. It will be uploaded to the website. Take your time to review it. If you have any questions now or later, happy to try to answer. Absolutely.
Did you just do this?
I circulated today, yeah. It'll be online, so.
So next would be the fire department report.
Report was forwarded. If there's any questions, I'm available for questions.
I get it. I think he was on first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say, Chief, I really like your report style. The style of the report is quite informative. I like how you did your breakdown. Very well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Chief, on our discussions we had, priorities and what have you, that we had our discussion one day, that you had some ideas about your surplus vehicles and stuff. Have you moved into that mode yet, your surplus vehicles at this stage? Or do you have a timeline? I completely forget when you were planning to do that.
Yes, I've talked to the CAO about it. I can't really change the purchasing strategy or anything like that, or the asset strategy. So what I have to do is wait for permission to do that sort of thing. You're speaking specifically about assets like trucks being given to departments around us so that we can still use that asset but not...
Yeah, you had a great idea that the surplus equipment that we have, maybe offer it to other fire departments and be able to maybe have them for assisting in times of need for us. That was part of your plan, I think it was.
Yeah, it wasn't part of the plan. I spoke about it because there was a
Okay.
question asked about it, but I'd have to get permission and I'd have to have a direction to be able to do
Okay.
that.
And one more question. I don't know if I think we did talk about this, about the new fire station committee. Or did we talk about striking a committee or doing something on that line? I know we had one in the last council, and there was some discussion, I thought, on striking a committee. Did we mention that or no?
We didn't speak about a committee or anything like that. A question was asked, and my answer was that I don't have anything right now. I reviewed some of the reports about the building we're in and everything. Amount of money was put into the building a few years ago, and that's what they went with at that time. So I have nothing planned for a new building right now.
My question would be to Jeff for a minute. Jeff, when we took that trip to Berwick, I think it was, we had pictures and stuff of that fire station, the ones that the community, the volunteers and themselves, they built together. Do we still have information on that, do you know? Perhaps maybe we could share that. I don't know where we're, I thought we were going to strike up a committee at the first of this. I don't know what happened to get off the rail or whatever, so. Do you have any remembrance of? Okay.
Thank you. So we did some preliminary investigation around replacement of the fire hall. We'd also invested at that time some money in the existing fire hall to repair some deficiencies. Council did make a motion to strike a committee, but it wasn't clear what the mandate of that was, particularly because there was a motion of, and I think that remains perhaps in my CAO report. There was a discussion about the fire hall at a later council meeting, and the time frame that I heard around the council table was like 10 years. So it hasn't been a hot front burner issue to establish that committee and do that, but you know, when it does come to the fore, then obviously the way they did it in Berwick is the way to go.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why I bring the topic up. So we're saying, your recollection is that we're going to wait 10 years? Is that what it is, where we strike a committee, or strike a committee then wait 10 years? Is that what it was? I don't remember that. I got a good memory, but it's short.
Yeah, it wasn't actually either of those. I took that as to mean that the life expectancy, or the hope of life expectancy
Of the building here.
The existing hall would be about 10 years, and so we're a couple of years into that now. At some point, maybe in 3-4 years ahead of your anticipated construction, you'd want to establish that committee, talk about what your needs are at that time. I know the chief has reviewed our apparatus as an example, and has made some recommendations or some suggestions within his fleet presentation he made to that budget
Yeah,
time.
it was great.
And that would have some impacts in terms of some of the I guess what I would call the functional side of the apparatus bays in the facility that you would need.
Okay, yeah, I'll leave it at that, but perhaps, I think within the near future, I'll be bringing something up. Perhaps maybe we can strike something and have that discussion around the table with the chief. Okay, thank you.
Madeline.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These are easy to read. Thank you. On the first page, on your incidents page, there are 7 incidents that are noted as being paged. What does that mean?
Page incidents are incidents where the information coming to 911 and the volunteers are paged out. Because right now our volunteers don't go to the call.
Oh,
So when they're paged, we need their services.
I understand now. Thank you very much.
Next item is the Planning Department report. Any questions, comments? Thank you, Ken. Go ahead, Ken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I had a question on this, and my favorite topic is signage, and I think we're just so sign fanatic, it's ridiculous. I'm looking here at a letter was sent to 136 Haley Road regarding the advertising flag sign for Leon's on the roof, and apparently you're not allowed to fly a flag of your business in the town of Yarmouth. Why is that? Why do we have on the books a rule? Because I remember having this discussion with the previous planner. At one point, we were to the point of almost banning even provincial flags flying off a building, because I remember when I was involved with Mr. Leonard's years ago, we received a nasty letter from the town saying that we weren't allowed to fly the Canadian, the American, and the Acadian flag off our building because they were considered as signs. So we seem to have a real hate-on for flags. Is there any way we can solve this without the owner of the property going through the $600 process to because really, you know, corporate flags now are common. Like TriStar, for example, has a flag flying out front of their building. So how come they can have a flag flying outside of their building for the last umpteen years? It's been flying, and yet Leon's, a new business in town that's struggling to stay alive, is being told, and I just got an email from the store owner a few minutes ago, receiving a very threatening letter that he has to remove the flags from his property permanently. He's a little upset. It's a trademark of their building. Is there any way we can resolve this without people going through this onerous process?
Yes, you can solve it by amending the bylaw. And the interesting thing about that part of the bylaw is that there's no section of any bylaw in the town of Yarmouth that's been amended more times. And nobody has suggested in any way that change. You know, the entire plan was reviewed 5 years ago. I know we amend that section regularly. There was a full review of that section with businesses, not the PAC, but with businesses, with Mr. McDonald, and that wasn't changed. And so I don't disagree that it seems a little heavy-handed, a little over the top to not allow a business that can have a flagpole to have a flag that advertises its business on that pole. But the easy way to resolve that is to change the bylaw, and then the bylaw will be enforced the way it's written. There was a suggestion of a list of amendments that would take the place of the existing sign requirement or sign bylaw presented to the PAC a couple of months ago. Suggested that it be done within the context of the full plan review. I don't think that's a bad idea, but that's not going to happen in an urgent kind of manner. What I can commit to you to do on this one is to take a close look at it with the development officer, see if there's any way we can address the situation short of banning the flag. Your point on TriStar is well taken. What we can't do is simply say as staff that we're not going to enforce the bylaw. So we have to find a way within the bylaw that we can accept the sign as it's run up the flagpole, or bring back the recommendation to amend the bylaw. Now, amending the bylaw is a bit of a time-consuming process. However, the upside of that is it suspends any enforcement action that's currently underway. So I guess at this point the quickest thing I can do is review it with the development officer and see what we can do. And the second thing I can commit to do is to bring back some amendments to the PAC that would look at that whole section.
Yeah, I think that's what we should do. You know, when you go to other areas, for example, your Ford dealerships, your GM dealerships sport their flags, their Canadian Tire stores sport their flags. I mean, flags are part of a corporate branding and identity. You know, that's what they're there for. And I can understand that we have a signage bylaw was there for a specific reason, but I agree with the CAO that maybe we should put this in place or do the recommendations, take a look at some of the more onerous difficulties. I mean, this to me is, I can't see it as a huge thing, you know what I mean? And it would be nice if we could maybe move on this sooner than later. And I know you will, CAO, look at this right away, the confidence in you on that one. And maybe council would consider, you know, looking at those amendments to at least accommodate some of the businesses, because one thing we've put as a priority is in our strategic goals is to work with business and to have a positive attitude with business. And this is one way I think that we can do this. So I would really encourage us to do so. Do you need a motion to direct staff to do that, or? Okay, I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chair, that the staff be directed to take a cursory review of the signage bylaw and report back to council with possible recommendations as to amendments to accommodate some of the businesses in the town of Yarmouth, more specifically to the flying of flags. And there may be others as well, but I want to make sure the flags are addressed.
We need a seconder for that motion. Need a quorum too, yeah. I realize that. Madeline, do you want to second that motion?
Can't do until you have a quorum in the room.
Yeah, I have to wait for Danny. Guessing you went to the back.
We talked about this at the last council meeting. Oh, yes. This is more specific. Breaks down the cost.
This was brought up before, was it at the last council?
Yeah, talked about it at the last council.
What did we decide on?
Okay. Pictures.
Ken made a motion regarding the flags and being allowed to fly them in front of their business. And we need to restate the motion, number one, and number two, we're looking for a seconder.
Yeah, the motion I gave was that we direct staff to review the signage bylaw and to bring back recommendations, do a cursory review of the signage bylaw, and to bring back recommendations to council of possible amendments more specific to the flying of flags and other related items.
Thank you. Madeline, I got your light on if you wanted to say.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Mr. Chair, I was going to suggest that perhaps the bylaw review committee contact and discuss the dilemmas that the business sector has with this problem, and get their ideas so that they then know what the problems are that the businesses out there specifically. Like, it's not just the flags. I'm certain that there are others out there as well. So that the signage committee can then take those recommendations and work on them, and then with that input, they would know exactly how to suggest how to change the bylaw.
Our immediate concern, though, is a seconder to Ken's motion, so we can get that started and then that process.
Okay.
Okay. Seconded by...
Did you second it?
Not yours, his. wasn't
He
it?
shouldn't
Yeah.
have a motion.
Well, that's what that's what he wants confirmation on.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep, seconded by Danny. Go ahead.
What was second?
My motion.
Your motion, yeah.
Refer to staff.
Yeah, well, there's so many people talking, yeah.
Not to
I
worry,
just
not
got a
mine.
quick, yeah. Was you done, Counselor, talking? No, seriously, I mean, was you done talking? Because you got your mic on. Okay. No, I thought she was you. I thought you still had something to say, that's all. Okay, okay. I just wanted to at what cost, will this be at the town's cost, not at the person that's flying that flag that's in so-called violation? This is going to be taken upon the town, on the town's dime to do the advertising and everything else in the papers. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes.
Okay. And on the other subject that Councillor Doss is talking about, I think that would be up to the committee itself, the PAC, to bring that in, the recommendation in, and write up the wording for that, for the flag bit, not to get a hold of stores and commercial properties, stuff like that. It's pretty simple to write up and stuff, I'm sure.
I think that's where we're headed, and we're going to have discussion too.
Yeah, you use, it's an open process once you put that in, and there'll be open meetings and everything to discuss it, so
That's right, Danny.
usually that's the way it goes. Thank you.
Thank you. Call for a question. All those in favor, please say aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you. Any other, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I mentioned in response to the question that this section of the bylaw is the section of any bylaw that gets amended the most in the town of Yarmouth, and it's still viewed as being overly restrictive. And every time it's reviewed and every time it's amended, it is not making it more restrictive, it's making it more permissive. So the idea of doing it in the same way that you would do it in an overall plan review has merit, and I think would address Councillor Dawes' concern that we engage the business community. So in a plan review, you would do a workshop around this. You wouldn't just simply do your regular process where you're amending that flag provision, but you would actually invite people and you'd sit them around tables, you'd talk about what we're trying to achieve, and then work from there to come up with specific bylaw provisions. So I think it has merit to take that process to do the engagement, so that at the end of the day, what we end up with is not a bylaw that will be amended 3 more times this year, but a bylaw that will actually reflect what is suitable to the community and what is acceptable to council, and the staff can enforce and know that we have everybody's support for that for the enforcement activity, including the general community as well as council.
Thank you, Jeff.
Just
Hi, Danny.
yeah, just another quick question. So what you're saying is there's merit in what Councilor Doss is saying to have a roundtable on this, but in saying that, every issue that comes up, are we going to strike up a roundtable, or are we going to just go through the bylaws as we were intending to do in the first place, to go through this? This was part of the priority setting that we were going to do, to look through all the PAC structure that we have in the big binder, so-called, and go through these. And the flag would be, pardon the pun, flagged, that it would be not in good taste or not recommended that we keep it that way. So Are we putting the cart before the horse, or are we just going to be pick and choose different ones and have round tables on? Is that the intent? Is that what I'm hearing, or maybe not? I don't know.
The intent was to do it once and do it right, if I can steal that. So the bylaw has some issues. It's always had some issues. I mean, for as long as I've been here, that is the most amended section of any bylaw we have. And we're still sitting here today saying it's too restrictive, needs to be reviewed. The way you would do a plan review, an overall plan review, is that you would take extra effort to engage the community, not just on the question of the text of a specific amendment, but you would engage the community around why. Why are we regulating signage?
I misunderstood.
Yeah.
I thought you just talked about the flag.
No. The whole signage thing, yeah. Okay.
Any other questions or comments on the planning report? If not, we'll move on to Operational Services Department report.
It wasn't, but we can. Do you want to hit the highlights?
Well, we already touched on the RCP building. Hawthorne Street upgrade, design is underway, and for the Hawthorne Street upgrade, the design is underway, drawings are going to be forwarded once they hit 25% complete for Western Alcohol. The LED streetlight conversion is out to tender now, with the closing date of April 29th. All use material tender package is ready to go first next week, closing date early May. Green Street Storm Sewer have requested proposals for design, and we will start the compost very shortly. Under the water utility, the Hawthorne Street water line's already to go, and we'll go with the street escape tender together. This comment that we had done a 3-year capital budget for the water utility.
Ken?
Yeah, the capital budget, now that'll be brought before the Water Utility Board when we have that. I'd like to get a copy of that if I could. The other question I had, just slipped my mind totally. I had a question regarding senior moment. Poof, it went because that water utility thing hit me for a loop there, so I'll come back. Sorry about that, I do remember. Well, what is the story on the bagger for the compost? Where are we at with that? We've had that thing for close to a year now, or close to it. Are we getting close to being able to offer our compost to the public?
We've tried different bags on it. We did last fall just to see how it was going to work and what was the best bag. We're having some difficulty getting the proper size, and trying to get a reasonable cost for the bags.
Have we thought maybe of buying them from an existing company who supplies compost, or are they all labeled accordingly? You know, like a company, like you go and you buy all these bags at various locations, like cutting a deal with maybe some company that sells the product. Maybe they have blank white bags or plain bags to put them in? Or do we have to buy them in a huge, huge quantity?
Well, the thing is, normally to get a good price, you gotta buy them in huge quantity. I tried to go to Paul's Cellar
Yeah.
Amherst to see if I could get a decent price from a local supplier, but they want a minimum order of 250,000.
That's a lot of compost. Okay. Okay, so
We will have compost bagged and available. It's a matter of trying to get our hands on the proper product too, at a reasonable cost.
spoke yesterday with Mr. Ernst and the manager of the compost facility, and we do have a limited supply of bags that unfortunately are not the ideal size. They are 36-inch bag, Dave, and so they can't be filled because it becomes just too heavy to manage. So what he's committed to do is to partially fill those bags and have those available for sale, I think as early as next week. Now, the issue will be the labeling, because if we were going to wholesale the product and have retailers, local garden supply places retail it, we would have to have the bags themselves properly labeled to ensure that the label goes with the product. But if we are selling it ourselves, a brochure printed with all the label information will suffice. It is not ideal to be doing it that way. We aren't really set up to do retail, but we are going to bag some because it is the season, and we are going to have it available, and we will have the brochures to pass people in terms of what it is they're buying. But the longer term, the better solution is the proper size bag, proper labeling on the bag. The issue they've been running into is really the cost. I mean, we could have it here tomorrow, but the cost of the bag, you'd be selling bags more than you'd be selling compost. Yeah, and so that's been the challenge, is trying to make the numbers work. But we will have compost at some point next week.
Thanks, Jeff. Any other questions or comments of David? If not, sorry, Madeline, I apologize.
I know, I'm all alone out here.
I know.
I just have a quick question regarding the RCMP building. In a perfect world, Dave, when do you see them moving in? In a perfect world, if everything went bang, bang, bang in order, and everyone's happy, within the year?
I would expect, yeah, before late fall.
Oh, that's encouraging. It really is, because a lot of people out there are asking. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Madeline. Finance Department, Jerry?
Yeah, so although we ran into a few glitches with it and it was delayed by a few weeks, as late as today, we've had some help with getting our tax bills input and printed. So tax bills will be printed either this afternoon or tomorrow morning and be mailed out a day later, kind of thing. And our actual go live will start on Monday. So come next Monday, when people come to the counter, we'll be using the new system to actually receive payments and send out invoices, that kind of thing. So next week will be a busy week for us as we're kind of trained the first week of our go live, but we'll get through it.
Supposed to be a little bit of stress in the office, I assume, extra stress.
Not much more. Our first, I was sat in on a little bit on the training this morning with the tax bills, and when they hung up to break for lunch, the staff both looked at me and said, "This is going to be so much easier, so much better." So it's good comments right from the start.
So that's good to hear, Jerry. Yeah, I know with any change, it's always challenging. Madeline, you had your red light on first. Go ahead, Madeline.
I'm sorry, what?
You had your light on first. Go ahead.
Doesn't matter. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a quick question for Jerry. With the new system, I know that you explained to us that there are a number, just a few people right now that are set up for this automatic pay for their taxes.
Yep. Yeah, that's not through the new system itself. We started doing that just through the banks.
Oh.
So that's files we just transfer with the banks at month end. And we'll just input those as payments as if someone came to the counter.
Okay, that's great,
Yeah.
because there are a number of people that
Yeah,
do.
we've had 2 more sign up in the last month. So,
Oh, good.
but without advertising, just a little bit of word of mouth.
Good,
Yep.
because I did get some questions from some residents that do winterize. They winterize
Yes.
down south, and they have asked, is it set up yet? Can we do it yet?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Ken?
More to the CAO or Jerry, when this new system, are we going to have, I've been hoping for this for some time, the graph that shows where the tax money is going?
That'll be on the flip side of the
It'll
bills
be on the
being
flip side of
printed
the bill?
today or
Perfect.
tomorrow.
So we're going to be doing that this year? Hallelujah. Great news.
Yeah, yeah. The graph is with our presentation, but the on the bill, what happens is we basically provide them a percentage of where our expenses go, and so every individual bill is a different amount. So if someone's bill's $500, it'll break that $500 to the different departments. So $20 is going for policing and $10 for education or whatever. So every bill will be a bit different. The percentages is what we feed them.
Thank you, Jerry. All right, hearing no more comments or questions, we'll move on to 5F, the recreation report. I think is there, just for circulation. Right. All right. Hearing no comments or yet, what's the next item, Jeff? Is it under 6A, YASDA, re the FCM board meeting municipal request?
Your Worship, I'll just introduce the item if you would like it. It's a request from Rick Allwright. Rick is the events person working with YASTA. What he's proposing here is to bid on a board meeting of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. The board is very large, and a board meeting does bring in a lot of people. So they're events that they plan and they try to move around the country. So he's caught on to that, and he's asking the municipalities in this area to partner to try and put in a bid to bring one of those events to Yarmouth.
Ken?
I'm somewhat confused here. Of course, it's not the first time. We were circulated a document at the meeting here, Municipality of Digby, and this associates the costs of a board member. Now, if I'm reading, and I know I'm jumping ahead, but it's very relevant to what we're about to talk about. Now, according to this, a funding of an FCM board member is $12,000. Now, when I look at this proposal from Mr. Allwright in YASDA, the initial expenditure being brought into the area, if I'm reading this right, is $266,983. There are 50 people on the FCM board. That would mean each of them would have to spend $5,000 in this area for what appears to be a 2-day board meeting. I'm kind of confused. Did we get the right chart for that impact statement? Because it doesn't say specifically FCM. It says economic impact summary combined total. Initial expenditures 266, that we're going to create 2.8 full-time jobs for this thing. I mean, excuse me, I'm doing a conference for 600 people this fall, 60 workshops, keynotes as a volunteer, and we're not going to create any jobs. I mean, I'm a volunteer. We ran the whole 250th with one person as a coordinator. And then I'm looking down these totals. This is holy mackerel. This event is going to be total industry impact, $541,840. That means each board member is going to be impacting us by $10,000. I think that's really the wrong sheet. It's got to be the wrong sheet. There is no way, because either that's the wrong sheet or this is the wrong sheet, because this sheet says $12,000 per board member, whereas this sheet says in one meeting they're going through $5,000 per board member. And that's just spent in this area, this doesn't count into airfare. But that's one part of my rant. The second part of my rant is simple. I totally oppose this. I'm a huge supporter of UNSM, but I will tell you right now, I am totally opposed. The taxpayers of this community who are barely struggling to make an existence to pay $37,500 to wine and dine a bunch of municipal politicians, with all due respect, because that's what we're doing. I mean, food and beverage, $3,500. Decor, $500. Venue rental, $3,500. Food and beverage again, $8,500. I mean, I'm sorry, but to pay this $37,500 for 50 politicians, that is $700 a pop, to have them come to our area, I'm sorry. I just can't support this. No way. I hope we're not getting involved with this one.
Madeline.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're not allowed to rant anymore. Renee. I read through this with much interest as well, and you do bring up some good points. I was, when I read through it, I thought, I'd still like to give Mr. Allwright the opportunity to present to council. I would, at the next council meeting. So if that is, you need a motion for that? Yes? All right, then I will make the motion to invite Mr. Allwright to present to council at the next council meeting. At least give him a chance, and then he'll at least be here in person to answer some of your questions.
Jeff
And
is-
some of ours too. You're not the only one that has questions. Thank you. If someone second that, please.
Danny and then Jeff. Danny and then Jeff.
Thank you, Your Worship. Jeff, this municipality of Digby, this is for asking for a board member. We already decided that at our council meeting about an FCM member, I thought. We made a motion not to accept it. Is this what I'm reading, or I just got it here?
I don't believe a motion was made on that. We did talk about it, but I didn't have any paper, and I indicated that there was information coming, so
okay.
that's what that is.
Okay, but we're not on this topic yet anyway.
No.
We're on the ASTA proposal. Okay, I'll speak on the ASTA proposal. I wouldn't second that motion. I will not second the motion. I won't support the motion, only because I read what's in here. I don't need him to present to me. I already read the information. I don't need him to tell me any more than what's there.
The motion that Madeline is making is for Rick Allwright to come to a committee of the whole meeting to discuss.
And I said I wouldn't support it. I wouldn't second the motion. And I wouldn't support the recommendation that we sponsor the FCM meeting. That's what we're talking on, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I won't support it anyway.
Thank you, Danny. Ken.
I'm like Danny on this, and I mean, I'm looking at timeline here. May the 15th is our next council meeting, and he has to have an answer by June the 3rd. My concern is this is a request that was sent to Mr. Allwright by the mayor to look into this. This is where the thing seems to have come from. And they're expecting each unit to kick in $12,500 for these 50 politicians to come to the area. I'm looking at so many different groups struggle to get money for events in this area and go on it by themselves. And to me, when I looked at this, and my God, all the time and effort that went into this is amazing. I still say I would like to, I'm curious about that second page. And to be perfectly honest, I'm almost tempted to second the motion, just out of idle curiosity, to see where this second page comes from, you know. So I'm going to second the motion out of idle curiosity, and that's the only reason I'm going to do it, because I'd like to know where the blue blazes that this 200, how these 50 people are going to impact this area for $541,000. Man, there's some deep pockets coming into this area, and if they're from municipal politicians, their councils better be looking at their travel claims.
All right, we have a motion, question on the floor, moved and seconded. Question being called. All those in favor, please say aye. Contrary minded, 1 nay. I guess that's carried, isn't it? 2 to 1. 3 to 1. Animal Protection Act.
Your Worship, we asked if we could have an extension on the timeline to provide meaningful feedback on this, and we haven't got a response to our request as to whether or not they would accept further feedback on the regulations that are proposed. So I'm not sure if it's worth your time to spend discussing it if they're not going to accept, and I can't say for certain they are.
I'd like to make a motion that we refer to the next meeting of the Committee of the Whole to give staff a chance to see if there's extension is there. Okay.
Moved and seconded. Question being all those in favor, please say aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Litter cleanup incentive program. Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, we're in the midst of a community cleanup. We started the community cleanup on Tuesday, and it's going fairly well despite the fact we have bad weather. We were advised on Monday that, on Tuesday, that Waste Check, in its wisdom, has decided that they have to find $100,000 somewhere. And one of the projects or programs that Waste Check has eliminated is the litter cleanup initiative program. Under Waste Check, nonprofit organizations could go apply to Waste Check. There was a pot set aside. It wasn't a lot of money, a pot where they could go for fundraising. And if they picked up litter for 1 kilometer, they would get a $175 grant. And if they picked up for 2 kilometers, they would get $350, double that amount. A number of groups, and I circulated to council earlier, such as the Yarmouth Hospital Foundation, Holy Trinity Church, Global Leaders, Yarmouth High, Tri-County Equestrian Club, Yarmouth County 4-H, Yarmouth Volunteer Fire Department, and the YCMH Green Team. They basically have submitted applications to Waste Check in faith that they'd be able to clear a section of the town of Yarmouth. In the past, we've had similar groups doing that. Argyle does have its own program, and it's had its own program for some years. And I know we've just passed the budget. The poor CAO was in his office the other day and saying, you know, what can we do about this? Is there anything we can do? Even if we could fund the groups that have applied to Waste Check this year. Communities in Bloom will be looking at it at our next meeting with the idea of trying to create a sustainable program. Some of our committee have already discussed the idea of maybe those companies that are contributing to the litter may assist in some way, financially or otherwise, for these groups. So I put a draft motion, but I asked the CAO for his consideration as well, because I don't know how fluid we are with money, and I don't want to put a pot in place kind of a thing if we don't have the funds to do it. So I'm going to make the motion, if it is discussed, fine, that we move the town of Yarmouth establish its own 1 kilometer and 2 kilometer town cleanup program to a maximum of $4,000. So that is subject to the CAO, to Jeff's recommendation. He may say $2,000 or $1,000 or no dollars. I don't know. I don't know if we can even possibly do it. So I think before Mr. Chair, we ask for a seconder, we can see if this is a doable thing or not.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
I don't have an answer for you today in terms of where we'd come up with money. It's committee of the whole, so it's a recommendation to council, and I can provide maybe some options at the council meeting in terms of where we might come up with the money to do it.
All those in favor of the motion, please. You just turned your
thank
light
you,
on.
Mr. Chair.
It's okay.
I just have a quick
It's all right.
question. If we do decide that, yes, indeed, and I think it's a great idea, but I think 4,000 is a lot of money right now. They had up to, okay, $175 for 1 kilometer, $350 for 2 kilometers. That would be, with these 7 here, that would not be 4,000, that would be just under 2,500. Would that be agreeable if you amended this and set up to a maximum of 2,500? I'd be happy with that. Yeah. All right. Do you need an amendment to that? Do you want to? What do I need to do that?
Yeah.
All right. All right. I just think it's fair. That's all. But then, of course, it's subject to the CAO addressing it at the next meeting.
I'll speak to that. Thank you, Councillor Dawes. Yeah, in talking with Amy Hilliard at Waste Check, see, what I'm really hoping is going to happen, that Waste Check will see the light and that they actually will not cut this program. I mean, when I look at the bang for the buck, I can't understand, and I don't mind saying this publicly, the rationale. Probably the most valuable education program they're doing is this community cleanup, because people hands-on get in the streets and clean up what's going on. They pick up the litter, they pick up the garbage, they pick up the debris, and if you look at these groups, 4 of these groups are young people, the very people we need to educate, and they'll go back and influence their peers. Yet, the priorities of Waste Check is to spend $35,000 on Business of the Month, or free meals for politicians up at their annual due that they have. I mean, if you look at the expenses and you look at the food and the beverage that Waste Check spends, we could be cleaning a heck of a lot of streets, you know, is my opinion. So I really think it's unfortunate that Councillor Mooney and Councillor Dennis aren't here today, because they're our Waste Check representatives. Because it'd be very good for them to carry on. I really think the board is going to take a serious look at where they're going with their budget, because this is one area that's very important to communities. And as an educator, hands-on education is the way to go. You get a heck of a lot more bang for the buck from something like this, and I don't think anyone around this table would disagree, than running umpteen advertisements or having a lot of free meals. No, I'm totally, I think there's other ways that they can save money in their budget than cutting a small program like this. And I would agree, Councillor Dawes, yeah, 2,500, but I think the idea would be is that we're going to work with Waste Check to kind of convince them, if possible politically, that, hey guys, you know, let's not be too rash in what we're doing here. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ken. Question on the motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Contrary-minded, motion carried. 6D is the wood chipper at solid waste. Ken.
I spoke to the CAO about this, and just for information, we do have a number of structures coming down in the town of Yarmouth. We've got some old dilapidated buildings. In fact, later on in this meeting, we have another one. And our cell has a very short-term lifespan. Well, it supposedly has a long-term lifespan, but if we got to figure out a way to get more out of it. So I'm going to, although it says wood chipper, I'm going to simply have a very simple motion, Mr. Chair. It's going to be that we direct staff to discuss with the solid waste park management to alternative ways that we can use to extend the life off the cells out there by the use of equipment such as wood chipper, crusher, or similar apparatus, and see if there's a way we can do it on a cost-effective means. That would be my motion.
Madeline.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to ask Mr. Ernst here. Do you have? Are you giving it your stamp of approval? Say yes, we do need it. Do we need 2?
I'm not questioning what you're referring to, there was a wood chip road at the solid waste part this past week, chipping all the wood debris and so on.
Yeah.
And that was hauled to Brooklyn Energy, so I'm no,
I think what I'm looking at, Mr. Ernst, is ways that we can extend the cell. My understanding that we do use some material in the cell, but the idea of pressing the cell down firmer. So we have my idea was compaction or making the material smaller than what we're putting in now in a way that we can compress it further, because my understanding is there could be a little help in compression. Because from what I'm hearing, the cell is not going to last as long as we originally had expected. And those cells are very expensive, as you know, to install. So that was what my concern was, to see is there something else we can be doing out there to extend the life of the cells. That was the reason I brought it up. Maybe it's a wood chipper, maybe it's a crusher, maybe it's a compactor. I don't know what it is. You know, that was what my intention was. Or maybe it's nothing. I mean, you could say right now, they're perfect. The cells are going to last 5 years. Don't worry about it.
I can discuss that with Glendon, but it's really in his ballpark. Yeah.
Okay, just for information purposes.
Yeah, basically we're just asking staff.
Yeah. All those in favor, please say aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Milton Dam, Ken?
I should have probably not had it as an agenda item. I should have put it under, just with Dave. I've had a couple of people comment to me. In fact, I've been by it numerous times. Are we doing any checks, Mr. Ernst, on the Milton Dam? Maybe it's me, but when I was by the Milton Dam 2 days ago, I stopped and looked. It looks like it's cracking. It looks like there's cracks, and it looks like towards the bottom there's water coming out of those cracks. And I've noticed those cracks seems to be getting, over the last week, because I go by the dam almost every other day on my walks now, they seem to be, is it just me, is it a visual, or is it a bit of a concern, or should we be concerned about it?
Well, I've heard those comments, and we did an inspection last fall when the waters were down and actually did core samples, and it's fine. That's just a visual effect that you're seeing there, so.
Well, my visual effect that I'm seeing is little and water coming out of those, you know.
That's imperfections in the concrete, and that's...
Is that what it,
yes,
because they
that's
weren't there last fall. These imperfections must have happened over the winter. I was just wondering if maybe staff could take a look at it.
We can take a look at it, but I think it's the same as what had been reported previously, and we investigated, but I'll have another look.
I think it would be good because things happen over the winter, and I'm just a little bit concerned about it. We did have a fairly rugged winter with freezing, and it is concrete, et cetera, so I would appreciate it if, I don't think we need a motion for that, Mr. CIO, do we, or no? Thank you.
6F, order to demolish 55 Grove Road. Jeff?
Thank you, Worship. It's actually in order to demolish a main building and in the interim to clean up an accessory building. So I circulated a copy of the order as was prepared by our administrator of the Dangerous and Unsightly Premises Act, or portion of the Municipal Government Act. The order does require the owner to demolish the building. This is the building that was referred to in the staff sergeant's report, in the annual report from the police, where there was a series of crimes that occurred, and there is a biohazard inside the building. We've been advised by the police that the building really should be demolished, and so we're issuing the orders because the owner has not taken, the estate has not taken the action of their own volition. So the order would have it removed, the building, by the 30th day of June 2014. And the garbage, there is an accessory building, and we've had reports of vermin attending the accessory building, and so this part of the order is to be dealt with much more quickly. So by May 1st, the garbage is to be removed from the shed, so to leave nothing there to attract vermin. Failing to do either of those actions would result in the town of Yarmouth undertaking on our own and applying the bill to the property. This requires council's approval to proceed, basically because it does include an order to demolish, and the administrator can do any orders appropriate under the Act except the Act to demolish, or sorry, the order to demolish, which must have council's approval. So that's for your consideration.
Danny came up first.
Thank you, Your Worship. Jeff, has the owner been contacted other than this? Has there been any correspondence, verbally or written, from him? This was given on the 15th of April, was it? Is that what I see, this letter?
This hasn't gone until you approve it.
Oh, it hasn't gone till we approve it.
If I can just step
Okay,
in just for
okay,
a second.
go
Okay,
ahead.
The owner of the property is deceased.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the property is now part of an estate,
Yeah,
and the RCMP, I know from my discussions with them, they were clear with kind of next of kin around what should happen with this property, and my impression is that nobody's taking ownership or responsibility, and I don't think we should leave this. Hi, Russell, if you want to come in. I don't think we should leave this until the estate is settled. That could take quite a while. I think the situation needs to be addressed, and the administrator is of the same opinion, and he's written the order for your consideration. But I'll stop talking in case he wishes to.
well,
to address it.
I'll let him speak, and I'll just shut my mic off till after, and he can speak.
Sorry, what was the question?
The question was on the order to demolish the building at 55
Where's that here?
Grove Road. But my question, I'll press my mic back on. My question was to Jeff, there's the cost to this, and the cost to do this, I know we have to do it, but my question is, the cost would be probably, I'm just estimating, probably $6,000 to $7,000. And do we have money put aside for in times like this? And if we don't, I see some notices going up on some other buildings that have problems also in the town of Yarmouth that are burnouts and burnouts practically, and letters and notices are going up on windows of those places in the town of Yarmouth, and we might be lucky enough to inherit those also. So as far as property goes, we're property rich and money poor. So I guess the question I'll ask, I'll cut to the chase here. Do we have the money to do? We have to have the money to do this, but if we don't, where's it going to come from?
Jeff?
So if the order had to be carried out by us, if the property owner or the estate decided not to follow the order, okay, so the best scenario here is that we issue the order, the estate receives the order, or the administrator of the estate.
And they do it.
And they do it. And then there's no cost to the town, except for Russell's time and your time.
That's no
to do
problem.
this. Now, worst case scenario is that we issue the order and the estate chooses to take no action, the administrator of the estate takes no action, then we have to follow through with what we're saying we will do, and that is to do it ourselves, or to have it contracted, take the bill and apply it to the property. We don't own the property at the end of the day, right? It's still part of the estate. And if the taxes are paid by the estate, then the bill gets paid at the time. Sorry, we pay the contractor, not to confuse you.
Yes.
We pay the contractor.
Yeah.
The contractor's good.
This is not our first time doing this.
No,
I
that's
understand
right.
that.
And so we end up with a receivable.
That's right.
It becomes
Yeah.
part of our taxes
Yeah.
receivable.
But do we have the money?
Oh, yes, we have the money.
Do we have a fund put aside for this?
How do we pay for this, Jerry? Excuse me.
No, because seriously, I want to know, and I think everybody should know.
It's a cost of operations.
Yeah, it'd be, I mean, what's in our bank account is
Okay, well, that was my question. You answered it, and I thank you. And you've been over there and looked at the building, Mr. Allen? And you were inside or just outside?
The building is secure with locks. I did an outside observation due to a complaint due to rodents. I parked in the driveway, got out of the vehicle, and the first thing that I noticed was the smell. You can smell it. And there's a shed that's up a little ways off the driveway. It's full of garbage, and I understand the house is the same way inside.
Okay.
Also with guard houses. It's totally unlivable according to the RCD that I had a meeting with. And so the best suggestion is to have it removed, demolished. It's not fit for human habitation at all.
And you got that from who?
I got that from the RCMP.
And that's what they're saying by doing their walk-in and walk-out?
Well, during their investigation.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Jeff.
Madeline, your light is on. Did
Yes,
you-
thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I make the motion to accept this, I wanted to thank you, because I had some questions about that too. I had exactly the same questions as Councillor McIsaac. And I don't know who I'm asking, probably addressing this to the CAO. How quickly can we rectify this problem? We don't want to support the population boom of the roads any longer.
Right. Okay, so there's two parts to the order. The first part is that, I don't have a copy of it in front of me. The first part, it has to do with the rodents in the accessory building. May 1st is the deadline for them to rectify that situation themselves. If they do not, then Mr. Allen picks up the phone, calls a local contractor. It's a fairly small amount that we pay for these, but we have a few contractors who are willing to do this kind of work. He'll call a contractor. If he's available and can do it, it can be done within a day or two, okay, of the deadline. But we have to give them a period of time to be able to do it themselves. And so the estate, the administrator of the estate may look after it themselves before May 1st. The second part of it being the demolition of the building, whenever you issue an order for demolition, there is an appeal opportunity. And so that appeal opportunity will come up at our May council meeting. And somebody representing the estate may appear and may provide information to council that would cause you to either extend or rescind or alter the order in some way, or you may choose to not change the order and it proceeds to June the 1st. At which point, if it's not demolished, we can take action. That's a little bit bigger contract, and so normally we seek prices from contractors. That takes a few weeks to get that done, and then as soon as they can mobilize. So you're looking at, for the building itself, probably into July, but for the shed, within a couple of weeks.
All set for the question, everybody? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried.
So will that be issued today? Pardon me? Will that be issued today?
This will be put on the building today, absolutely.
So, Ken,
Just rising on a point of order, may I suggest, Mr. Chair, that right after this meeting, we call a special council meeting, because that is a recommendation from a committee of the whole, and if you're issuing the order today, you should have a council meeting right afterwards.
agreed. So we had some extra items, and I just lost as to where we're going to put them on the agenda.
We can go with them right here. Okay, so we had just the letter on the Kaleido, that's for information. Unless somebody wanted to address that. Sorry. That was a letter from Honorable Rona Ambrose